Wanted to create a little video that kind of shows how to create some complex shapes and stuff in Inventor for sheet metal fabrication for brake press operations. You can kind of see I just got a really simple little shape. It's a little cylinder, and then it goes off at a certain angle and then comes out at 30 degrees. I'll kind of show you what this is in a little bit. But it's based off of this skeletal part. Go ahead and turn all my different little parts on. Now you can kind of see that I've broken this up into a couple different sections in order to bend it. I did it in half sections over here. And so let's take a little bit closer look on this guy around the outside here. So I used a technique, I like to call it the zipper, because you kind of go off one edge and then bend it really tight in one area and then bigger in the other, and then come back and do the opposite in the opposite direction. And as you kind of zipper this thing around, you can actually create a pretty good curve and have it follow the surfaces that you need, and have it follow exactly where you want. So if we kind of open this guy up in his own window, you can kind of see here's the actual flat pattern. I'm going to go through this process in a little bit and figure out how this, show you guys how this works. You can kind of see we get the flat pattern out of that thing. And just to show you real quick, we'll go to the actual drawing. So we have a typical drawing where I have the front view and a top view and a couple little isometric views. This is 3/8 stainless steel. And I've got the flat pattern up here with all the bend notes, and with each of these bend notes we've got a little bend table. And Inventor can really automate this. I'll quickly show you this. If I go ahead and delete this, we can go to the Annotate tab, just say General Table. We'll just select the view. I'll just accept the defaults, place it out there on my drawing, and it's going to automatically number that. Doesn't put them all in the exact location that you want, but you can always kind of drag these guys around and put them where you want them to be. So pretty quickly and simply, you can kind of see we can annotate these drawings. So before I show you this this technique on how we created this, I'm going to go over here to this other part. So I have this little intake, and you can kind of see this is going to be the finished component. I've got kind of a squared around transition, but the square is at a weird angle, and the round is just kind of coming up to that cylinder there. And when you do this, you try and mimic to where the sheet metal can hug the surface. It's not going to get exact, but it's going to get pretty close to where it's something that's going to be manufacturable. So we're going to start on this guy right here. And there's going to be some times in which you can kind of see I've got my surfaces on. We're going to turn those guys off. And what I've done is I've created two sketches, just a nice simple arc and a nice simple line. And normally you could just say, hey, let's go to the lofted flange, and we'll select the line, select the arc, but you'll notice I don't get a preview. Because they're non-planar, Inventor's not going to like how it's going to do it. There's too many different ways to calculate it, and it's just not going to do it for you. So we have to figure out a different way to do this. Initially what I've done, if we take a look at my little line, I've actually segmented my line into different little, you can see I got little points down here. So I've segmented into about 4 or 5 different lines in here, and that's what I'm going to use to kind of do, again, my little zipper technique. So I'm going to turn on another sketch that I had. Just turn the visibility of him on. And you can kind of see what I've done here is I've segmented my arc, instead of just a 90-degree arc, I've segmented him into individual little pieces here as well. Now that I have this done, it's ready to get to work. So I'm going to start with the plane command. I'm already in sheet metal mode. I'm going to use a 3-point plane. That defines my work plane. Rotate around so you can kind of see that. Just going to start a new sketch on that plane. I'm going to project this little line that I have here. Go ahead and get that little corner there, and then we just need to make a closed shape. So go endpoint to endpoint. Go to the endpoint of this guy. We need to leave a little bit of material here for a relief. I'm going to go ahead and make that perpendicular to the bottom edge there. And then our last constraint is just going to be a dimension. And I'll make it 1/8 of an inch. So now I've got a face. We'll finish the sketch. Just use the face command. I want to pull it out and away from the surface. So I just accept the default and hit OK. So that finishes the first little section of this. I'm going to go ahead and hide my work plane. My next work plane is going to be based off of, make sure you use the endpoints of the face of this guy. And then next time I'm going to come around here to my first endpoint on my flat. We'll do a new sketch on that. I'm going to project geometry. Again, when I project geometry, I'm going to project that edge of the solid model there. Then I need to project this little endpoint there. And again, we're just going to connect the lines. Draw this guy out there. Perpendicular constraint. Put a dimension. Sometimes I may try and right click and do an align dimension if it doesn't look like it's close. Get 1/8 of an inch. Finish the sketch. Do the face command. Make sure it's going up and out of the part. And when I hit OK, you'll notice that Inventor automatically puts the bend and relief on there as it needs. So one more time, just to make sure that you guys get the sequence of events. Rotate around a little bit. Do a work plane. Endpoint of the model. Endpoint of the model. Endpoint of the line. Select that. Do a new sketch. Project geometry. Again, make sure you get the edge of the model itself. And the work plane was based off of this guy, so we'll select that point. Get the line command off of the endpoint of the model. Try a little endpoint up there. Come all the way down. And go to endpoint. Perpendicular. Dimension. 0.125. Turn the visible on my plane off. Go back to the face command. Again, make sure it's going in the proper location. And we'll hit OK. So bit by bit, you can kind of see we're going to start making kind of like a little zipper as we start to pull in from one edge to the other. So I'll go back over to my part. This one's pretty much done. I did add an extra feature. Go ahead and delete that just to kind of show you. When I was done, I finished at the bottom here. And you can also see that I was pretty close to finished at the top, but the way that this slope was on this part, I had a little bit of extra that I needed to kind of finish out. And so what I did is I went ahead and just sketched on the front face of this guy. I'll just project this little point up here. Then I'll just use the line command. Go from endpoint to that projected point. Then from that projected point down to the bottom of my part. And we'll finish the sketch. And we'll do the face command on that guy. That'll finish out that little flat. And then now all I need to do is separate this next skin and mirror the parts. And that can get the other side to my manifold. I can also use this same thing to create this little helix. Now in this assembly, it's got a whole bunch of the helixes in there. So you can kind of see I can make like a little screw conveyor or something. And if we just open up one of these elements, this guy is just 1/4 of a section. And if I turn his little surface body on, rotate around, you can kind of see the little surface in there. and my little part is hugging that little surface. So again, I can also get the flat pattern from this guy. So I hope you enjoyed this technique, and talk with